And thank you for tuning in to the Life Mod podcast show with Dr. Gonzalez. My name is Dr. Orlando Gonzalez. We're coming to you live from our New York studios today. And today, I think, if for those of you who have been following us, you know that we talk a lot about some very controversial stuff. And part of that is last week we talked about our human design podcast that I know you listen to, Paul, and I'll introduce Paul here in a little bit. But for those of you who have been listening and tuning in, you know that we're pretty big on this concept called the human design. And the concept, basically, for those of you who haven't tuned in, is basically that we were created in a certain way, and that we really are doing nothing now currently that we were sort of created to do. So I did have a good friend of mine who had popped into the office this morning, so I kind of put him on the spot, Mr. Paul Vigliotta.
Hi, how are you?
And I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thanks.
It is freezing.
It is unbelievably cold.
Yes, for those of you who do not know this or do not live in the Northeast region, I think today's high was going to be 7.
I don't know. I stopped counting at some point in time. Where it's not even a number that a thermostat should be at. It's
not. It's horrible. So it's really, really cold. It's been cold for this whole winter. We are coming to you live. So I don't know. Hopefully it's a little warmer where you're at.
Oh,
if
God,
you're
I
listening.
hope for you.
Yeah, hope for you. Paul is a really good. Let me introduce him a little bit. Tell you a little bit about him, and then I'll let him talk and introduce himself. But the way I met Paul was through a gym in Jersey City called Base, and he's one of the personal trainers. Now, how long have you been with Base now?
Well, Base started about a year and a half ago, so I've been with them the entire time.
Okay.
But before that, the owner that split from Club H, I've been working with him for about 10 years.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Club H became Base, and this is really an upscale gym.
Yes.
If you guys are in the area and you want to stop by and look at it, I mean, definitely Paul would be a great person to kind of look for. But this is a really upscale, sort of Miami vibe gym.
That's what they're really going for.
Yeah.
It's a $15 million facility. It's about a little over 30,000 square feet. So it's a really large, really high-end gym.
I actually got introduced to gym through one of the owners and fell in love with it, actually, and thought this would be a perfect sort of venue to have a Life Mod office in.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we did. We ended up talking to the owners and deciding we're going to open up a Life Mod office here. And we do have an office in the gym in Jersey City in addition to our New York office. Excuse me, and that's been actually worked out really, really well. So we're very excited about that. But this is how I met you. You're one of the prime trainers here, and also Paul has always been this very astute guy who is very into trying to take care of himself and very interested with the anti-aging concept. And so you joined Life Mod.
Correct.
And so we can talk about that later, but. One of the reasons that I wanted you to come in today, and I asked you just a little while ago, hey, maybe we should put that on a podcast, was because you were talking about how you look at people running. We're talking about how cold the weather has been recently, and how people who run out in this kind of weather are either crazy or they're crazy. And I'm one of them, by the way, as you know. I'm a big time runner. But we were talking about how running really isn't part of our human design.
Correct. And we do nothing as far as our lifestyles to help condone running as something to participate in.
Exactly. So I thought this is a perfect podcast, and that's why I brought you in. So before we start getting into the running and the human design and how that doesn't go with it, can you just tell us a little bit about your background and why you're sort of involved with Life Mod?
I started personal training about 7 years ago.
Okay.
Was always an athlete.
You can't be that old.
I am. I look really good.
Yeah, if you can't see him. He looks really young. Right.
Got into it. I always played sports. Always liked teaching, and it was just personal training was kind of that great melding of the two that allowed me to have hopefully a really positive impact on people's lives, while also kind of doing something that I'm passionate about that always made me feel good.
Right.
And it really started just because I I went through probably my early 30s rather. I hadn't been working out, hadn't been doing anything. Got pretty fat and needed to lose it. And for me, I didn't understand the best way to lose the fat and get myself in shape. I'd played sports all my life, but I knew enough that I didn't know what I needed to know.
Right, and interesting because when people look at you, for example, Paul, I mean, you don't. It's amazing. These are the stories that I love, and to hear and to also tell, because this is what Life Mod is. It's so interesting. I used to be overweight too, and so I totally identify with that. But when somebody looks, for example, at Paul, for those of you out there, he's a trainer, so he looks in shape. He looks like he's got it together. Like you would never have guessed that you were
went through all that.
Yeah, that you were overweight.
Right.
And that's why we have so many sayings in Life Mod. One of them is know thyself.
Correct.
And then we have the other one, the Victim Vestre Vita, which is conquer your life. But another one that we always talk about is that the way you look on the outside has very little to do
what's going on the inside.
Exactly.
Yes.
And people don't really understand that concept.
No, not at all.
So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
No.
but you were talking about how you were overweight. I can't believe that. But
yeah, 3 chins. Stopped weighing myself when I'm only like 5'9", 5'10". So when I got over 200 pounds.
That's a formal weight, by the way, measurement, 3 chins.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. 38-inch waist, and my pants were still tight. And
wow.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I hold all my body weight, like, pretty much in my belly, like, not in my arms, not in my legs. So I'm, like, the skinny arm fat guy. Because that's what you want to be. Because that's really sexy. Yeah. So, yeah. And like I said, I never...
You never know. It could be for some people.
Hey, well, thankfully it's not me any longer. So, yeah, I got into this because I wanted to know how to get myself into shape, especially not playing any sports. And, at the time I was like 30, 31, knew enough that my body was going through changes that, things are slowing down, things are harder to do than they were in my 20s.
Right.
So I wanted to go about it in an educated way. So I had, slowly educated myself. And
you became a trainer here now.
Became a trainer.
And for those of you, obviously, who don't know, he's actually one of their top producing trainers here.
I like to think
and yeah, I do too. You are. And so you're like perfect for this because you see people coming in who join the gym in the New York City area, and you see all sorts of people, right? I mean, you see people who are sort of in shape, and then some people who are completely not at all in shape.
Yes.
And
much
everything
more the latter than the former.
Right, and everything in between, I'm sure, right?
Yes.
And so, this is perfect too, again, because we at Life Mod have gotten to the point. Well, we knew this a long time ago, but we have realized a long time ago, and we continuously realize that people have no concept of their body, no concept of their health.
No.
And
we shouldn't say no concept. They have a
skewed one.
Yeah. There's a lot of misconceptions out there.
Yeah.
And I actually don't blame anyone for having the misconceptions that they do, because there's too much information.
Yep.
And so much of it's coming from fraudulent areas.
We've said over and over that we live in an information society. Like, you want to know right now, you Google, you Wikipedia, you do whatever. And so the problem with that is that we've gone away from really listening to our body.
Yes.
Right? Isn't that the whole point?
Yeah. I was actually having a conversation with someone earlier today about that, where just a typical housewife, I wouldn't even call her that, just typical woman, mid-40s, couple kids, has a job, doing all the things a typical person would be doing. And kind of explaining the process of going from being out of shape to getting in shape, because she's in that transitional period.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of the difference between being an athlete and just a regular-the-mill individual. And as you start getting closer and closer to that athlete, you begin to really understand your body so much better. And that's one of the things I think most people are incapable of doing right now. They don't understand that their body's trying to communicate with them, telling them that it's, it's this or it's that. And we don't understand the signals that are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's at the point now, and she's really excited by it, where she's beginning to learn what her body's telling her and what she can do. We were just having that conversation. It's
That's
really
fascinating.
It really is.
It's fascinating. I will tell you, and I know that we've talked about this, Paul. I will tell you that we are. Well, let me go back a little bit. People want to be healthy, right?
Yes.
People want to get healthier. But the problem is that unless you really know who you are,
Right.
I have argued that you will never be healthy. If you do not know who you are, you will never be healthy. Now, I know that's controversial for people, and I know the audioship, the viewership has always sort of, we get really good comments. By the way, we do encourage comments on LifeMod. We're going to start taking call-ins, actually, in a couple of weeks. So that if you guys want to call in to the show and ask a question, you could definitely do that. But you can also email your questions to info@lifemod.com, and then we can read them out. And we were going to try to do that at every podcast from now on. But we get a lot of feedback from that statement.
Yeah.
Because my theory is, and has always been, and always probably will, that if you want to achieve optimum health, there's only one way. There's only one way to fix your car, right? You have to know what's wrong with the car.
Yes.
If you don't know that the carburetor is wrong, is faulty,
right? And
how are you going to fix your car? You got to know, first of all, you got to do the diagnostics in the car.
Yes.
And so that's the big thing about LifeMod. And so this is fascinating because people want to, our human design is such that we are designed to know what's wrong with our body if we just listen to it.
Yes. But we've lost that connectivity in lieu of so many other things that go on in our lives.
Absolutely. Stress, work.
Yeah, we are no longer doing the physical activity that we used to, and
absolutely
because we're not having that daily conversation with our bodies to be able to sit there and go, hey, what's wrong?
Daily conversation with your body.
If you look at most athletes,
we're going to adopt that in LifeMod.
Hey, go for it. At least I could do is give you that.
That's right. I love that.
And that's really what it is. If you look at and I would say even like farming to a certain extent has become so mechanized that the physical labor that we used to always do isn't part of our everyday lifestyle. So because of that, we're not listening to what our body's doing because really our body isn't doing a whole hell of a lot anymore.
Yep.
We're sitting behind a desk for probably about 85% of the population. And because we're not being physical, we're not having that conversation.
Absolutely. And that is what we talk about in the human design. It seems like you're a LifeMod member.
It almost does.
Paul is, by the way, so he understands this. But this is why I wanted to have him, because you're actually perfect for this. We want to, there's maybe that group of people out there who listen to us and think, well, these people are really healthy. That's what they do. That's what they're doing. But we're trying. But that's not how we always were.
Right.
And we learned how to get to this point. And I'm trying to teach people that everyone can get to this point. And I get so passionate about this. I mean, people who listen to the podcast, I'm sure, are like, oh my God, he's preaching again.
Right.
But I do believe that the reason we're doing this is that what Paul just said is exactly what we've always talked about with a human design. Mm-hmm. We currently are doing nothing that we were created to do.
Absolutely.
We sit and we in our offices in New York, we have standing desks for people. My employees might not like it too much, but I think it's fantastic, right?
It's significantly better than sitting.
Absolutely, and we sit. Most people sit on their butts all day, every day, 5-6 days a week, and then we're surprised when we have low back pain. I mean, seriously?
Right. Yeah, I mean, from my aspect, so much of what my job is entailed, and any decent personal trainer will tell you the same thing, is that whatever your goal is when you come to see us, we have to fix what you're doing first. Mm-hmm. We have to get you to move well before I can get you to move often. So with that in mind, it's understanding what you're doing on a daily basis. So the way I usually kind of describe it is, if you think about what you're doing for 8 to 10 hours a day at the office, maybe 12 to 14 for a lot of people, if you think of it as far as that is your workout, you're working your body out to be in that position for 8 to 12 to 14 hours.
It's a workout. You're working out.
You're teaching your body that this is the position you're going to be in, and you're teaching it over and over again. So now your body is going, oh, okay, this is what I need to do now.
Because we're adaptive.
Correct.
People have accused me of LifeMod not being adaptive,
Oh,
or
no.
that I've said that we're not adaptive. And that, go ahead, I'm sorry, because that's brilliant. We have adapted to sitting on our butts.
Without a doubt. So, and once that starts happening, during the evolution of humanity, we've basically have been the monkeys and all the other fun little creatures in between. We're the ones that survive by storing the fat the best, so that during the lean times they had something to rely on. Well, we don't have those lean times anymore, at least for the most of us.
Right.
And so now we're at this point where we're not doing any of the physical activity that we were designed to originally, but we have this ability to store fat, just kind of like, eons of evolution.
Absolutely.
So sitting down and just teaching yourself this repetitive motion over and over again is just making us fatter. It's literally, I wouldn't say destroying muscle, but it's sure as heck not helping any of the muscles.
Absolutely
in the
not.
body.
And what's happening is that the muscles that we were designed to be using in our back, for example,
Right.
in our core, are now atrophied, and that
Correct.
means that they're not being used, so they become smaller,
Right.
and they become weaker.
And we lose that ability to actually actively activate a muscle specifically. You should be able to get most of the muscles in your body to flex whenever you want to.
Right.
Most people can't.
Right.
So that connectivity with our body is gone.
And they try at some
It's
point.
not-
At
yeah.
some point, all of you who are out there listening, and this might have happened right now for those people listening
Mm-hmm.
right now. But I guarantee you, if it hasn't happened yet, it will happen one day when you wake up and you're like, "What am I doing?
Right.
What am I doing with my life?"
Yeah.
And you're gonna try to get back to becoming healthier. And the
Mm-hmm.
problem is, because we're adaptive. That's
Yes.
a good thing. Because we're adaptive, we've trained our bodies to atrophy and sit on
Right.
our butts. And so now you're going to try to be active, and you're going to be in pain. You're going to be hurt. You're going to
Yep.
get hurt. Your likelihood of being hurt is going to be higher.
Significantly.
So that sort of is the whole point of this human design, is that
Right.
we have to be in touch. Look, we're gonna have to do another podcast on what I call the good, bad, and the ugly, and I'm inviting you, please, to come back.
I would love to.
Because you would be perfect for that
Yeah,
that podcast.
God knows I say enough of the ugly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what we are about. This is what LifeMod is about. Getting people to realize that we are currently doing nothing that we were created to do.
Right.
And that it's no surprise to me. I mean, it's surprising to a lot of people. Oh my God,
Right.
why am I hurting? Why is my back hurting?
Right.
Why don't I feel energetic? Why do I
Right.
feel tired?
Yeah.
Well, because
We're not doing any of the things we're designed to do.
nothing.
And if one of the things I will tell most people is, once you start moving, I don't care what it is, keep it simple, especially depending on where you are in your fitness level. But if you start moving, all of a sudden you start feeling better.
Absolutely.
Having a crappy day, go walk for 20 minutes. I bet you at the end of that 20 minutes, you'll feel significantly better than you did before it.
Absolutely.
And that's just because our bodies are made to move. And
Yep.
when we don't, all the chemicals in our brain start changing as well.
That's brilliant.
Well,
I'm going to have to leave it at that, because on the next podcast, when we invite you back, we really want to get into that whole concept of one of the things that we're talking about is runners, for example.
Yeah.
There are 3 to 4 aspects of the human design that LifeMod is very big on. It's the human design fitness,
Mm-hmm.
where we're doing nothing that we were created to do. We're not moving
Correct.
anymore. Kind of what we just talked about today. And then there's the human design nutrition.
Right.
We're not eating like we were supposed,
Oh,
like we're
God, no.
created to eat. And then there's also that element of the human design spirit, and
Right.
that's another very crucial aspect of this.
Without a
So
doubt.
we'll get into the next one on the next podcast. But really want to thank you for being here.
It's my absolute pleasure.
And I'm telling you, we're gonna get people to be like, well, can we have Paul now lead the podcast? And so Dr. Gonzalez is out, and you
if
can.
that's the way it
maybe-
goes. Listen.
All right, thanks a lot, Paul. And for
My
those of
absolute
you,
pleasure.
thank you very much. And for those of you out there, again, www.lifemod.com, or you can also email us at info@lifemod.com. Thank you.